In the never-ending search for stuff and things to fill the void just available at our fingertips at any point of the day, thrifts are among the many things that are being affected by mass consumerism. Our quick dopamine hits indeed do have their consequences, and we can see this with the thrifts being flooded with useless, meaningless paper-thin clothing that nobody wants to wear because of the label attached to it. I mean, I'll be the first person to say that whenever I've gone thrifting to find staple pieces of clothing for my wardrobe, I avoid Shein at all costs. And yes, it's more ethical buying it through a thrift. I'm also conscious that I'm less likely to reach for a Shein piece just based on its quality, based on its lifespan. Not to mention the thousands of micro trends that have been victim to being bought for the sake of participating in a weeks-long TikTok trend. And you could even call me a hypocrite in that sense, because I have done clothing hauls in the past, as I thought, oh, how cool is it that this company just wants to send me free clothes? That's awesome. But that was until I had to make the decision of whether I was just gonna be another one of those influencers who doesn't really practice what they preach. So since last year, I have not accepted paid and or non-paid hauls to do with clothing. And I mean, not to lick out my own holes or anything, but it adds to the culture of people excessively spending money for no good reason. I already have enough great clothes, and that's that. Underconsumption core should be more than a passing trend. Everything you have bought is still on this earth. You could also make the argument that everything that we haven't bought is obviously still here on this earth. But that doesn't have to be true, because when there is a demand, there is a supply. And we'll get into the bystander effect later in this video, but I find that so many of us think that, why should I stop doing this thing? It's only me. I'm not really making that much of a change. Do you know how many people think that way? And that's exactly why nothing changes. Regardless if we are buying up the clothes or not, I think the problem begins when the excessive consumption breeds excessive demand. What is still a popular genre of content on social media? That's right, hauls. And it's even gotten to a point where a lot of influencers are basing their accounts on thrifting hauls and calling it ethical consumption. Whilst I do agree that it is ethical going over to a thrift and buying the clothes there so it doesn't land up in landfill, the problem is that these influencers still go back and donate these clothes because it's just a trend for them. It isn't really anything meaningful. Think to whenever you see a new micro trend pop up on TikTok. Taking Clean Girl, for example. At least here in Australia, every and any retail store that sells clothing is catering to exactly that. You have Glassons, Cotton On, Factories, Supre, and I know that a lot of them are owned by the same company, so it does make sense that they would sell the same style of clothes. But my issue with this is that there used to be a differentiation of clothing stores. Cotton On was a little more basic, Factory used to be alternative adjacent, and now it's all the same. They're all catering to that aesthetic because of its popularity on social media. But once that's all over and done with, it's on to the next micro trend and trashing that to the thrifts, just leaving that up to someone else to deal with. And donating is amazing, it's incredible, but I'm not sure if I can say the same thing about somebody donating 8 bags worth of Shein clothing. It's not only just my bias towards fast fashion and how I'm not gonna wear that simply because it just not only doesn't look good, so there's obviously that appearance factor, but it's quality factor for the most part. I still have clothes from when I was 16. I'm looking for clothes to last me forever, not for 2 days, not for a night out. It reminds me of when the e-girl style was taking over and retail stores were doing the exact same thing, supplying the demand, but once it was all said and done, once it wasn't trendy anymore to try and be creative with fashion, it was back to bullying alternative people and phasing out that style of clothing altogether. And I was only just wondering why last year when I was thrifting, there was heaps of e-girl stuff. I was like, what is going on? People complain about the trend hoppers during, 2020 and whatnot, and how they're so fake, whatever. Hey baby girl. But you know what I love about them? I love the fact that I just found this at the thrift for $4. Like, thank you. Please keep donating your clothes. But on that note, I was out earlier today and I saw a Salvos pretty close to where I was doing my shopping. So you know what I had to do? I had to see if it was really true that is this an issue on a larger scale, like globally, that thrifts are sort of being used as a clean conscience option as opposed to just throwing the crappy microtrend pieces where they belong. Yes, in the trash. But no, not in the trash at the same time, you know what I mean? I saw a plethora of Shein clothing, Boohoo, and Pretty Little Thing items from over the past couple of years. The price tags attached to these clothes are just not good enough of a reflection to justify taking on that extra baggage that will soon need to be discarded, as the quality of these clothes are at the bare minimum. It's completely bare bones. Remember the trend of wearing snakeskin printed pants? I mean, guess they're not trendy anymore, so thrift it is. You could also use the argument of, oh, well, drama queen, what if that person genuinely grew out of those pants? What if they changed their aesthetic since then and the pants just don't go with anything they have? Obviously, you can't really help the growing part because it's not like your clothes grow with you. So yes, I agree, it should go to the thrift instead of in the bin, because the only reason why you're never going to wear that piece of clothing again is because it doesn't fit you. Valid. And on some level, the aesthetics reason makes sense, because it's like, well, if you're talking about a teenager just all of a sudden not liking their style anymore because they found out it's not their aesthetic, they found out it's not their style because they're still growing and changing as a person, well then, yeah, obviously you're going to see those kind of pieces in thrifts, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about teenagers going through their little emo phases or wanting to be Fashion Nova influencers. No, we're talking about the people who frequent these websites such as Fashion Nova, such as Shein, and have the urge to buy whatever's new, whatever is trending. And as soon as they're finished with that piece of clothing, it'll be one wear and then never again. There it meets the thrift and possibly, most likely, most definitely landfill. I mean, look at what thrifts have to sort through on a day-to-day basis, and that's not even showing us 10% of it. Unfortunately too, we have a culture where people will, for some reason, comment on the fact that people are repeating their outfits for some reason. Like, why are you wearing that shirt again? Didn't you just wear it a couple of days ago? Yeah, but I also own a washing machine. Yeah, but Samantha, I'm not using my t-shirts as napkins to be discarded like you are. You are not supposed to have a brand new outfit every other week, but social media encourages this. I remember seeing such an out of touch clip from obviously the Kardashians. And look, I don't have really anything against those women because I don't really know much about the Kardashians, okay? But I heard that Kim Kardashian never outfit repeats, never wears the same outfit ever again. And then it's like people wonder why that thought process is so popular. It's because some of the most influential people literally tell us don't outfit repeat. I would never be caught dead wearing that dress again because I wore it on the red carpet. So where is it gonna go then? Why did you spend 20 grand on it then? Even buying secondhand clothing at the moment has become this Wild West sort of thing where you have resellers who are so focused on buying up all the good pieces that it kind of leaves nothing all that cute to the person who is actually in need, who actually has to go to thrifts because they have no other option. And then the same reseller will go ahead, take this piece piece from the thrift and upmarket at an insane price on Depop. But then that's a whole nuanced conversation too, right? Because it's like these Depop resellers are kind of keeping thrifted clothes alive and continuing the lifespan of these clothes that are being sold. I know that there are going to be people who see this and have their own thoughts and feelings and opinions on resellers, but you absolutely cannot argue with the fact that it's like, well, at least they're keeping clothes in circulation and they're not ending up in the landfill. I know we're gonna die one day and we can't exactly take our clothes with us. That's why we should be in our conscious consumption era, and it's kind of hard to do that when social media is constantly selling it to us. Or what about the sustainable fashion influencers on TikTok who are doing thrift hauls every other day as if it's not another way to consume on a larger scale? Depending on what area you're thrifting in, you can get excess clothing for so cheap. And that's why you will see these influencers come out of certain thrifts with 20 pieces of Y2K juicy couture pants. Or for some reason, you'll see someone come up on your For You page, they've somehow scored an Elder Goth's lip service collection, all for like $60. Or we have the overconsumption crowd just flocking over to thrifts because they've realized that this is a new place where they can get more and more. Trends in fashion just should not be landing in thrifts at this current rate. The 13 going on 30 dress was most likely bought as a Halloween costume, but like every other person on Halloween, you want to dress up as something new, something different. So obviously we're going to be seeing a lot of Halloween costumes in the thrifts this year, but just by looking at the tag, it seems to be a cheap dupe that, if I'm to take a guess, didn't fit well, hence being on the racks at a thrift. This video does reign true because whilst you can always point the finger at resellers being the reason as to why you're never finding anything cute at thrifts, absolutely anywhere ever, you not only have to factor in the obvious, like where you live. Maybe you live in an area that isn't too fashionable. Maybe you live in an area where it's just all old people. So, I mean, you're not really gonna find that dead stock poison industry skirt, sweetie. Like, it's just not happening. But you also have to factor in the level of consumption people are doing with fast fashion at the minute. And most of the time, it's not even quote unquote poor people who are mass consuming fast fashion. It's the people who have a lot of money to spare for actual quality. And I say this because I made an observation the other day whilst I was out buying new bathing undies, because I don't really fit into the ones that I was wearing a couple of years ago, and I have not been to like beaches or pools for a couple of years just because like I haven't liked my body. And I'm sorry, I cannot do thrifted undies. Never will, never have. That is just But I saw that there was this very like luxurious looking person in the store that I was in. Louis Vuitton bag, the Sambas, the whole clean girl suit. Like, I could tell she was raking in money, okay? And she's complaining to the store employee that Shein, for some reason, did not put the bikini in her order. So she's there trying to find a bikini top for the undies. And I'm thinking, why are you of all people shopping on Shein? That is crazy. Do you not have the money to spare to buy actual quality? And it's not that this instance made me realize that. No, you go onto TikTok and what do you see in common with the people who are doing these Shein hauls, who are doing these fast fashion hauls? That's right, either rich influencers or rich people in general. Because it's not like people without the money to spare for quality clothes can exactly go out every other day and continue buying heaps of clothes to replace the disintegrated fit that was in the washer last night. Remember how I said earlier in the video that I absolutely refuse to buy Shein clothing even if it's from a thrift? Well, it's not only just me who feels this way. So many people think like this, and it is unfortunately why you are not seeing Shein clothing move as fast in thrifts like it should be. Not not even like it should be how we want it to be. Because of the fast fashion influx, of course you're not going to find cute stuff anymore because it's all about hauls and getting quantities over qualities. People act as though it's almost integral to our personalities, to our identities at that, to have so many pieces of clothing, to constantly be buying what's new in this aesthetic, what's new in this subculture. And it's honestly beginning to become such a joke. You're not goth enough because you don't own enough Killstar. You're not clean girl enough because you don't have every single beige color of the basic staple singlet tops. You're pretty much not this enough because you don't have that enough. Thus, driving insecurities in people because of course they want to be this and that enough. So they will scramble as quick as they can and as cheap as they can do it to buy as much as possible that fits their aesthetic, because appearance nowadays matters more than anything.
This is actually insane. This is literally just one thrift store in my town and the racks are filled with Christmas outfits that people probably just wore once or twice and then got rid of. I mean, I guess I'm just saying, maybe think twice before you go buy a new Christmas outfit from Target or TJ Maxx or Temu, Shein, TikTok Shop, whatever. And don't forget that it doesn't disappear from the face of the planet after you get rid of it, and the environmental impact of everyone doing this is a huge issue.
This actually reminds me of a conversation I had with my friend recently, and you know, we're both goths. We're extremely excited for Halloween time because it's the only time of the year that we see our people, quote unquote, come out. And we were talking about the fact that we can't wait until Halloween is over so that we can go into the thrifts and have a squiz at what people have donated, because it's either that it's just more sustainable to wait until then, as we are wanting a few pieces of clothing but, you know, just don't need to get it. But it's also the fact that people use thrifts as a dumping ground for their decisions. Whether they're good, whether they're bad. It's sad because Christmas isn't exactly fitting anybody's aesthetic or style once the day is over. It's pretty much a one-day thing where the aesthetic doesn't really make sense all year round, right? Whereas like Halloween, for example, that's when you see the alternatives and goths come out, bro. A lot of the aesthetics that play into Halloween play into my life, play into my lifestyle and what I really like. If I was a heavy Santa enjoyer, maybe, just maybe, I would thrift some of those shirts, but it's not like you're going to be catching anybody out on a day in April where they're wearing black skinny jeans with a Christmas shirt. No, it's not happening. It's why I hate it whenever people donate these Christmas shirts and then buy new ones, because it's like Christmas is next year and the year after that and the year after that. The aesthetic of Christmas is not changing anytime soon, and it never will. So what's the deal? Why are you donating that and buying a new one? Unless you don't fit into it anymore, that's the only valid reason. I'm sorry. But Drama Queen, the shirt was already produced, so why does it matter if I buy it? Because it increases the demand for that very shirt. So then it goes on to increase the production scale. So many people have the mindset of, well, you know, I'm just one person, so I'm not really going to make a difference here. I'm not going to change. And it's kind of why we're here in the first place. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say that I've never thought that way before, because I most certainly have. I think it's a very normal human response, because we think, well, there's 7 billion people out there. What am I going to do to change the world? Absolutely nothing, because it's just me. I'm just the one person. So don't ever blame yourself for that, because again, a lot of people think that way. It's why our planet is not in a good place at the moment, because now more than ever, companies are producing, and we're just consuming. I truly feel like Christmas this year is going to be insane, because now it's going to be a competition amongst influencers of who can have the most gifts for their children ever. If people didn't donate their holiday clothing and actually kept these shirts and sweaters, the production scale for the Christmas shirts and sweaters would be on the lower end, meaning that it would be a lot harder to get because you already have one. You're not really thinking about buying you Christmas shirts, so you're not really seeing them in stores. Personally, I am never going to buy a Christmas shirt just because it's not a shirt that I can style with any of my existing clothing in my wardrobe. I don't care if it's a holiday. I don't care if I'm going to be your bridesmaid. Do not buy me a bridesmaid shirt. I can remember the memories with photos. It's okay. That's also why I hate whenever workplaces or companies will just gift you this random mug or these random shirts that honestly you're never going to wear. And that is also why you will see so many random company merch in thrifts, because people have gotten these things over the years that they don't need, that they're less inclined to use just based on the fact that it comes from work. Why do you want to be reminded of work? For example, it's why band tees are my most common clothing purchase. Why? Because I want to support that musician's livelihood and them making more music for me to listen to. But I also know that I'm going to be wearing them in their crust until I'm 70, 80, however long I live. I'm not going to stop loving Kitty or Cannibal Corpse or Dark Throne because it's not in trend. Personally, I don't really care about trends, so my wardrobe is completely fine. 400% more clothing is being pumped out annually as opposed to 20 years ago when fashion was a little bit more well thought out. In terms of people being either confident in what they liked, they didn't really care about all of this validation and attention from random strangers online, having the ability to not be so swayed easy by an ad they saw on TikTok for the hot girl summer, as there was no TikTok back then. There wasn't this innate desire to showcase themselves on a larger scale to strangers, constantly keeping up appearances and staying on trend to be relevant. One of the biggest reasons that clothes are being consumed on this extreme level is because we put so much emphasis on our clothing nowadays. If you're not wearing this, you're not that enough. And you hear it so often. If clothing is not in active circulation, we very well run the risk of having those clothes landing in landfill. That is not a good thing. We want to try and not produce as much waste as we're doing at the moment. If resellers are on the hunt for clothes at a thrift that they know will sell, but maybe it wouldn't have if it were to stay on the racks at a thrift, regardless of your thoughts on resellers, they are keeping those clothes in active circulation, and that is so important. Personally, I think that that is way better than those clothes being shipped off to a random country's landfill because we can't handle the quantity. The decisions we make on what we consume should not always land at thrifts. The next time you buy into a TikTok microtrend, think about why you're exactly consuming that piece of clothing. Is it because you genuinely like that piece of clothing and you're like, wow, I can put this together with so many fits? Or is it because you want to stay on trend with other people? Of course, clothes are always going to be in active circulation through thrifts, regardless of overconsumption or not, because you obviously have people who grow out of clothes, people who have aesthetic changes. However, I think that whatever it is that you consume, whether it be makeup or clothes or decor or items in general, purely just for social media likes and validation is never going to be a good enough reason to buy that thing. It's probably not going to land you with a long-lasting wardrobe for years to come. I'm obviously really lucky in the fact that I haven't really grown that much since I was 16, so I still have pairs of shoes from when I was that age. I also still have clothes from when I was that age. And I'll even make my stance pretty clear on this. I don't think that being a collector of certain items makes you a bad person or makes you somebody who quote unquote overconsumes. I think the people who are in the overconsumption bracket are the people who buy 15 of the same Stanley Cups just based on the fact that they're different colors, but they all do the same thing. They're supposed to be reusable, but you're not using any of them at that point. So with all that being said, everybody, do you think overconsumption is ruining your local thrift store? I mean, for me personally, I don't go thrifting all that often, but whenever I do, it's always full of Shein and Pretty Little Thing and Boohoo and these other fast fashion brands, and it's like, well, I know I can't buy this now because it's not going to last me for years years to come. And personally, for me, I'm only speaking for myself here, that is my goal when I buy clothing. Thank you for your stay at Yappersville today, everybody. I really appreciate your existence and your stay here every other day. You mean so much to me. I'll see you guys soon. Take care of yourselves, and most of all, love your selves.